Alright, let me get everything set up real quick and then let's start. Let me double check if anyone has dropped any more. Hopefully the audio is okay today because I don't have my headphones since I I accidentally ripped the cord out of my headphones, so I gotta get new ones. If you have any recommendations, feel free to drop some. Okay. Yes, I see it now. Okay, let me see. Let me pull this up. I think they're the same image. Okay. Alright, might as well start with Misu because he is the one who also provided me all the PSD layers and everything, but you've merged it also. Kind of defeats the point. I would say maybe it might be helpful for you to keep the background and the figure layer separate, but I don't know how the filters work in that case because you have to merge it to get that filter. But regardless, let us take a quick look compared to last time, the progress that we've made. I think you've definitely improved a lot on the facial structure. Got that jawline back in there. We were missing that and I was feeling your face looked too alien-like. Definitely got a lot of that progress done on the clothing. Finished up the TBs and everything. And I think you did a pretty good job transitioning into color via the method that I showed you with the overlay and highlight layer. Now, of course, this isn't a critique if I don't destroy some of your outstanding art knowledge. So let's just jump right into it. If we don't talk about the grain filter, which I'm pretty sure you use like the stylize. So if you're wondering how he got that effect, you can just add a little bit of noise. Add noise. You can add either uniform or Gaussian, and that's how he added that noise. And it creates a really cool effect, sort of like old-timey effect. But I'm gonna have to paint over all the noise. Let's see if I can do this. It's gonna be a little bit of work, but we'll see if I can do this because I think you did a little bit more work after you've merged everything, and I don't want to just like get rid of all the noise. I think I might have to though. Okay. First things first, we want to make sure that this lip color isn't so dull, because if you look at it from far away, she looks a little bit more emo than she should. Unless you are going for that whole emo look. If you are going for the emo look, that means you also have to give her some eye shadows, like eye bags and everything. So let's try to lighten up her lipstick real quick. We're gonna do the fast and cheap way. We're gonna use an overlay layer. I'm gonna jump into a slightly grayish pink, desaturated pink. That way we don't get too crazy vibrant. Like if I jump into this, it's a little too vibrant. maybe even reduce that a little bit. Still too bright. I would save any signs of saturation for like very specific pops of color. Like say if you are going to want to draw your focus towards a specific part of a picture, maybe the only places I would add that extra pop of contrast would be like her highlights. That way she really pops, especially her fiery orange reddish hair. Without that extra pop, her hair kind of sits a little bit further back and you feel more like she's integrated into the scene. But if you actually wanted to highlight her, then she definitely needs just a little bit of that extra color, that saturated color. And in regards to the hair shadows, I think you did a pretty good job simplifying this side. Definitely gonna want to work on this side, because if you remember, make sure that her hair, this part is like folded on top of that hair, so her shadow really should follow that same curved line. Don't have that extra bump in here because it doesn't really make much sense. See? So this part should be in shadow if you are gonna... Let me just merge that down. This part should just be in shadow if you are going to create that extra shadow thing that you're oh, I'm on the wrong layer, that's why. Whoop-de-doopy, make sure your brushes are in the right mode. Ooh, hello Jesse. Again, driving while watching me is quite the dangerous activity to do. You're a daredevil right there. So again, right here, get that really smooth curve. That way the hair feels like it makes sense and it's like sort of like a piece of paper kind of idea that I talked about in my hair tutorial. Hopefully you go back and watch it all again. Always treat your hair sort of as in layers rather than like a big fluff, because it's really hard, especially for beginners, to just treat hairs as like a huge mass. I like to try to break it up. So let us get that, finish up that highlight over on this side. Yeah, see, so it's a toughy one to try to paint over this without, because like if you look closely in the Gaussian, the noise, there's so many colors. I guess this is the day to use a lot of overlay, multiply, and hard light layers, y'all. Okay. You definitely don't make it easy for me. I will do my best. I still feel like her eyeballs don't have enough shadow. This, if we zoom out far enough, her eyes are like popping straight out. In reality, if you look at your own eyeballs, they kind of are more in shadow and they sink closer into the similar color as your skin almost. So I'm gonna have to darken this up just a tad bit. That way we don't feel like they're popping out and they're more cartoony, because we do want to get a better sense of realism that you have here with that kind of semi-realism that you've mixed in. So let's make sure never ever use a white color for your eyeballs. I'd rather you give it a little bit of color. So let's say we take a little bit of this and just darken it up a little bit. I'm not saying you have to darken up like crazy, but before, after. Maybe I'll tone it down a little bit. Specifically, you need that shadow that's up here on that upper eyelid, so it feels like it's actually sitting on top of her eyeball and it's not just decoration. Before, after. See how that helps her eyes sink in a little bit more and she looks more gazing at us. I'm gonna get rid of it a little bit so you get back some of that bright wetness in her eye. But I'll probably keep it on this side because this side of the face is more in shadow. So before and after. Smudge that down real quick, and then we're gonna get that really nice pop of color in her eyes, because her eyes, we want to draw the attention to how her powers are kind of, spoiler alert, how she's a devil. So her eyes need to get that pop of saturation. So I'm gonna bust out our hard light layer. Come in with a slight orangey color. And pop out that little highlight that we have. It's super subtle, but it makes all the difference, especially if we're looking at it from far away. So zoom out. Super subtle. Maybe I'll shift that color tone a little bit because I don't like how orangey it's sitting. It's the most subtle thing you'll ever see. And this is why I am known as the nitpicker. This is also why it takes me forever to finish anything, because I nitpick about the colors. So before, after. And then I'll real quick get that spicy little lighting highlight. And I don't use white because rarely in real life is it ever white. So just take a slightly off color. And this is also your chance to add a little bit more color to the eyeballs. Okay, that looks a little bit better. I think I do want to fix her eyes a little bit, just cause, again, make sure you bring it all the way down so it still makes sense. Even if it's anime, there has to be a sense of realism, so her eyeball has to reach that inner eyelid part right there, the juicy part, the meaty part. And let's not have too much of that extra bend. And you always want to make sure you sell the illusion of lashes by doing a soft brush rather than drawing the individual lashes, because it's going to make you go crazy if you try to draw them all. And there are some artists that prefer to do that, but it's all about working smart, not harder. So I don't see why you would do that to yourself. Especially since we don't have that much time to draw all day. Oops. I'm gonna maybe change this color right here to be a dark red instead of black so it doesn't feel too heavy on her eyes right now. Same thing for her lower lashes. I'm just gonna make that color into sort of a dark red so we don't feel like it's too heavy, because you never want, unless you're into that like makeup style, but I feel like having both the top and the bottom eyes lined really dark and heavy feels too unbalanced. So even if you do want that really cool like outline framing look, you do want to maybe make one of the values a little bit lighter, just oh so subtly. I really can't tell what color that is. Let's just take a slight magenta color for that. Since her under eyelashes are kind of this reddish color, I figure it would match a little bit. Then lighten it up a little bit. Much better. And I'm gonna give her face a tad bit of structure right here, because if you look at it from far away, you're gonna feel that her face feels very, very flat. So we need to break up that shape a little bit. So I'm gonna give her back a little bit of shadow, just a eensy weensy mincy. So gotta use the multiply layer because I don't want to mess up any of this, the texture green that you got going on. Oops. And it's oh so subtle. Same on this side, give her a little bit structure. It's so subtle, and you have to be careful about not making it too dark, because if you make it too dark, it's gonna look like she has under eye dark eye circles like I do when I don't cover it up with concealer. But you can see how that subtlety kind of adds a little bit more structure to her face, so it's not just pure light right there. We're gonna do the same thing for her cheeks right here. Give a little structure to her face, so she's not just sitting like a mask. So before, after, super subtle. Everything I'm doing is super subtle, but it does make a difference, because if you look at it from far away, you're gonna tell immediately like, oh, the face has something extra, but you can't tell because it's super subtle. And then if you want to bring back some of that lightness, you can come in here. Okay. And then I want to come back and fix that lip because it's still looking too much like she's pursing her lips, and that's due to the fact that of the way you rendered the shadow of the side of her mouth right there. I don't know how I can fix this, but we'll see. Okay. So this part, we never want it to be super harsh of a line. You want to make sure you do a little bit more gradient. Oops. Maybe I can do it like this. Okay, we'll try it. I wonder if that worked. Kind of. Usually when I'm painting, I like to paint directly, so that's why I try to leave all the filters to the very end, but since we already have the filter, this is what we've got to work with. Okay, let's see. Alright, so I outlined the edge of her lip, and let's see if we can work some magic on here. Potentially. Yeah, it's gonna be hard for us to do it on the other one because you already fixed everything here. It's okay. Keep this in mind for when you do this in the future, especially since it's gonna be hard for you to fix the original piece of work since you didn't keep any copies of the fixed up face before you applied the filter. But we'll do what we can. Apply a little bit of that shadow to the side of the mouth. So it looks like her mouth is, you know, stretching. And when it's stretching, there's that really large shadow on the corner. You never want to just leave it right there. So make sure you bring it out a little bit more. I gotta be careful not to do too much of that shadow. It's gonna be dangerous. How am I gonna pick that color? Okay. Just pretend it has that texture, okay? I'm gonna make sure we darken up the inner corners of those lips so it feels like it's closed. Let's see if I can do a little bit of liquefied to get rid of that really weird stretch of the mouth. Because right now the mouth doesn't really line up with her eyes. So if her eyes aren't really, you know, when I mentioned if you're smiling happily, you tend to have a little bit of eye bags right here. So if she doesn't really have that many eye bags, that only indicates she's not really smiling that widely. I'm also gonna fix up the eye shape a little bit. So we don't want her lips stretched too far. Yikes, this noise is not gonna like me. Yes, this is a crit. You're ready to learn? Perfecto. Just trying to somehow work my magic when Misu has already applied a noise filter to this piece. And so if you can see, this noise filter is giving me a run for my money. Every single time you color pick something, it's an entirely different color. So it's making me really work hard for this. And it didn't help because the unmerged version is anatomically different from the final version that he sent me. So I'm like, good sir, you're making me work hard. All right, so those are the subtle differences I made to the face right there. I'm gonna get rid of that. While we're still at it, I guess we'll just merge it because this is my life now. Try to merge things while keeping it cohesive. So Misu, you're just gonna have to watch the playback because I ain't keeping any of the layers that I work on. Okay. This is a pain in the ass. How am I gonna get that color? Okay. Gotta use my own color knowledge. Let's see if that works. We're gonna have to choose one single lash to be our dominant lash line, okay? That way it looks more natural rather than having so many different lashes. See, on this side you did pretty well. This side needed that same treatment. And then I'm gonna see if I can shoop shoop, make that more into that fox shape. So we give an illusion to her personality. Also gonna make sure we darken up this outer ring, so when we look at it from far away, it still reads as her irises and we don't get lost. Better. Yes, this is an exclusive Patreon crit. So basically every month I host a disciples tier crit where my disciples can submit their artwork that they've been working on since the last month or this month, and I will help them, you know, evaluate and help them figure out where they can improve on, what parts of places they should target when they are working on their own art. Besides or they can submit their monthly challenge, because I do issue monthly challenges, and so far I have only seen Greta attempt it, and I've only seen Kitty mention it in the Patreon. So the rest of y'all gotta get on it. Let's see, what else? Oh, what is this? What happened to the shadow? You finished? Yeah, you're moving? Oof. Yes. It's fine if you finish it next month, but I do expect you to finish it, okay? So let's never forget the color shadows. The lack of color shadows makes me very appalled. Look at how that helps break up that structure of the shirt. The lack thereof, and now that you have a shirt, voila. So if you're not sure how dark to make it, I would highly recommend you zoom out a little bit, read it. If you can't read it, chances are it's not dark enough. Or you can use the navigation tool, but I feel like I don't keep my navigation tool very big enough for me to evaluate from far away, so I just do Control 0, and that zooms you out to the size of the whole canvas. I'm doing a little gradient so that blue doesn't feel too out of place. Very culty. If it is not a cult, what would it be, huh? You only say it's a cult because you're not in it, but understand this is a multi-tier educational purpose. We will want, this is a crisp linen / cotton shirt, so you definitely do need a little bit more structure. Let's do a little quick search up because formal shirt. Let's see. All right, let's throw this baby in here. Now you can see these types of shirts tend to have a lot more structure to them. So when you do this soft gradient, you lose a lot of that structure that these types of shirts have. So you're gonna have to bring in a sharper type of shadow here. Because if you don't have it, your shirt just reads like a t-shirt, and this is not a t-shirt. This is a formal shirt because they wear nice professional work clothes, even though they are definitely going to get destroyed when they're fighting the There's too many things to watch. What was it again? Demons? Yes. Devils, yes. When they're fighting devils. So you can add a little bit of structure using that lasso tool and then just erase it a little bit, tad bit, a little way, so you can get some of that softness back in there. But see how important it is for you to create a little bit more structure in the shirt. And let me see if I can find the original reference photo that she used. Copy. Oh yeah. Serves me right, I shouldn't have expanded that size. Alright, it's really shitty quality, but whatever. Okay, so just a little bit more structure. You see there's more structure, especially in these folds. And then I would say to get the shadows for these areas, you want to pay attention to the value. So squint your eyes and you're gonna see the value really isn't that much darker than the shirt color itself. So you do want to lighten up that a bit because right now it's sticking out like a sore thumb. Let's see if that works. Slightly. And what you want to pay attention to this type of fold is you want to understand how the fold works. So that way you know where it needs to be a sharp edge and where it needs to be a soft edge. So come on, Photoshop. Okay. So right here, that shirt is folding inwards like this, and then it's coming outwards again like this. So it creates a raised edge right here. So there should be a shadow sharp edge here that fades off this way, instead of a sharp edge right here. This needs to be part of that shirt. See how that works? See how that fold works? This is that raised edge, so light, light, light. Ooh, ooh, ooh. So in this case, what you need to do is fix it like that, and then already it looks a lot better and makes more sense as a shirt fold. And again, we gotta soften up that edge. Ugh, we're gonna pretend this color picking thing is on my side. It's not. It's really not on my side. Yeesh. Okay, so you see how that compared to where was the last one? Yeah, there. That compared to that, right? So this fold right here, you kind of got lost in all those little lines that you see here. Don't worry too much about lines. What you want to understand is 3D form. So if you see this, you have to imagine, okay, the shirt is bending. So why am I getting this line right here? It's because you have a shadow being cast by this shirt fold, which is raised up here. And then you have a very subtle shirt fold right here. And that's why you're getting that line. So you need to make sure it's the same value, and then you get your shadows here. Yes, you should join us. We are a very fun group when we are not roasting each other. But you sign up for it, so you have to be comfortable with receiving critique for your art. Like if you are looking for just praise, then perhaps this is not the right community for you. But if you do want to improve your art and listen to me talk about really lame memes while I'm talking about roasting your art, then yeah, for sure, join us. And I think we may need to work on that shadow right here a little bit more. because it looks very flat from far away. Right, we need that highlight right here or a shadow right here, and I'm thinking maybe a highlight would be easier for you to just add. So you see that chunk right here? We're gonna get that shape in there using our lasso tool, and then bust out our one of these layers. One of these layers, maybe overlay. No. Yeah, let's do soft light. And before you ask me what these layers do, I will tell you I do not have a definite answer. I just think soft light is a little bit more subtle when it's adding that extra glow, whereas hard light is like basically your intense highlight kind of layer, whereas overlay is very much a saturation type of highlight kind of thing. But as always, I recommend you experiment with them, because what is being an artist if it's not experimenting? I shouldn't give you all the answers. Yes, I hear a Chainsaw Man opening, low 5 right now. Okay, so see how that adds a little bit of structure to the hair. Shoop, shoop, shoop. And I think that's fine. You don't have to join. Just in the future, something to consider. If you just want feedback, you can always join the Discord, and you can totally get some feedback from people there. Lots of friendly folks. There. Now the hair looks a little bit less flat, which is pretty important, because the first things for drawing is getting composition right first, then your anatomy, then getting structure in there, and then color, because color is sort of a very personal choice to make. So some artists refuse to use any color at all because they don't feel comfortable yet, or they choose to want to live in the world of moodiness cinematography, whereas a lot of other artists, if you use color, it tends to communicate their personal emotions, feelings, thoughts, and personal preferences. So those are some things to keep in mind when you are going about your own artistic studies. Don't worry too much about color just yet, because color is a very difficult topic to handle. Even I'm still struggling a little bit with it. So take your time, get the foundations like solid to the point where like you can draw whatever you want without any stresses about the anatomy, and then we can start worrying about color. Okay. I'm going to maybe make her eye just slightly darker on this side because it's in shadow, and my channel is underrated because I do not commit to a schedule. If I were dedicated enough and proactive enough to keep a weekly schedule of streaming, I'm sure I could maybe get a couple more viewers. But I'm a lazy piece of shit, okay? I like to hunker down when I'm doing art, so I don't like to be distracted by things. And I also like to watch stuff while I'm doing art. And if Twitch doesn't cancel people for streaming copyrighted stuff, then yeah, I would totally just throw myself up. Alright, where is my multiply layer? Yay. So I'm basically backtracking all the shit that I did for her eyes, but hey, okay, you have to understand, I'm like, at that moment it looked better, but now that I'm looking at it, I felt like we need a little bit more shadow. So that's why I'm going back and forth, and that is a-okay. You can always make yourself work more. So long as you feel happy in the moment, okay? Yes, art is my full-time job. I mostly get most of my income through commission so far, and then I work a little bit part-time as like an art teacher. So Patreon does not take up most of my time yet, as of yet. Let's maybe add a little bit of that red color into her eyeballs. A little bit more structure to her eyes, eh? Sweet. Alright, if you hear piano in the background, I'm sorry about that. My dad is practicing piano because he is bored. Okay, so you see how that extra shadow adds more dimension to her eyes, and it feels more like a 3D sphere rather than just like a flat look of the eye. And so that's something you want to think about, especially when you're aiming for more semi-realism. So like for manga style, then they typically don't emphasize too much on the 3D shape of the eye, just because it's supposed to be quick and quick, so they can be finished within like the week. I think their deadlines usually are, which is crazy, but that's why. And then, oh, I am baffled by the lack of the shadow here. The hair should still be casting a slightly darker shadow, so yeah. We're gonna get that shadow in here. It should really be the same color as this one, but again, color picking is being my worst enemy today, so. And you're missing a lot of the structure in the shirt here. So again, if you understand, this is a fold, so the shirt collar is pulling this way, so you're getting these triangular folds that go this way, and that is what this shade right here is. It's that dip in that fold. And so you need to have that, especially if you're wearing these types of shirts where the collar is kind of tucked in like this, and then you're wearing a heavy jacket that kind of pulls against it. And the tie also kind of pulls against it too. And so this part should be in light. Yicker deekers, eager diggers. Let's see if we can do it. Okay. And then you need to make sure you get this to fade off a little bit. It's gonna be rough to do this, but just pretend that fades off better, okay? You get the idea. But before, you don't have enough of that structure, so the shirt feels very flat up here. And now that you have a little bit more structure, it feels more like a shirt now. Flip canvas, yeah, very important. Flip canvas. You're gonna see that everything gets messed up if you flip the canvas. Okay, and then we already see that there's a little bit of anatomy issues on that face, so let's do ourselves a quick favor. Bust into liquify, because I'm too lazy to try to redraw everything. So I see that her eyes aren't lined up properly. So ever so subtly, you have to fix that a little bit. Make sure the tops and the bottoms line up as close as possible. You don't have to make it perfectly exact, but you do want to get rid of any like super obvious issues. See how her eye on this side is a little more closed, so I'm bringing back inwards a little bit. And let's not give her super thin lips, so I'm gonna do a quick Botox for her bottom lip. And she will not even experience the swollenness. Now there is like a fine line between super thin lips and then stylistically like the manhwa style lips where they have a thinner but slightly thicker lower lip. And so that's why, especially for females, if you want it to read more feminine, you definitely need to make sure your lips aren't too thin. If one lip is thin, then the other one has to be a little bit thicker. Can't have both of them super thin or else it's gonna read more old, very more witch-like, because those are the characters that tend to have really super thin, angry lips. Okay, before, after slight fixes. I also want to make sure her pupil is reading from far away. So I'm gonna make sure her iris, her pupil's a little bit bigger. Right, super slight fixes. Juicy, exactly, just like Colleen says, okay? Alright, super slight fix, but it helps a little bit. Maybe I want to get back her smile. I kind of forced her smile down a little bit. Now, if I didn't have that, all those grains, I would totally hand paint and fix it, but I don't want to ruin any of the colors that we have so far, so we're gonna do a little bit. Alright, here we go. So I want to get rid of this extra shadow here, but I'm not sure if I can just because that's how the color picking happened. So maybe I'll cheat a little bit, see if I can cheat. From far away, does that look better? Not really. Okay. We'll just do it ever so slightly. All right. Okay, let me just look over everything else in general. Make sure you keep these lines a little bit straighter. You can always bust out a polygonal lasso. That way your TVs don't look whack. Ew, yikes. Okay, pretend that works, okay? Same for this one, you want to be careful about straight lines. Even if you are trying to create the illusion like the TV is popping out, it has to match on both sides. So if this is curved right here, please, okay, what is this? If it's curved right here, this part also has to be curved so it feels like it's bulging out parallel. But if you're gonna have this line pop inwards this way, then I would say your screen needs to be popping in that way. just to match. Okay, so anything that is very geometrical form, like TVs, books, tables, anything like that, those things have to be parallel. Yes, Misu, someone has commented they love the way you render the TVs, and that is in part due to the way you first laid out the grayscale pretty nicely, and then you added the overlay layers that I told you about. So bravo for that part. But again, make sure the structure cannot be slackened. Like look here, even if it's like slight curve, you see how it's still straight. So this part is the curved part, not this TV, okay? All right, and then let's look at it from before, after. See a little bit more life to her. I kind of duped up a little bit with this extra blush right here. Let me get rid of it real quick. Okay, so before, after. She's super emo, so she got that black lipstick goth on, but now she has a little bit more life to her. She feels more believable, like she could stand in front of you. Okay, so pay attention to those details, and I think you're pretty much set with this piece. You can probably move on and work on something that targets a little bit more, say do a little bit of clothing studies, because I think you need to observe a little bit more how folds happen and what the 3D form is, like how light catches the fold and creates those extra lines that you see. Okay, let us move on to Jesse, because he's here and he's been waiting forever for me to get going. Okay, so I took your screenshot, I cropped it out and I flipped it because your own picture is flipped. So let's talk about the first things that I noticed. I think you have a pretty good grasp about that this is a very green toned picture. I don't know if you color picked it, but if you color picked it, that's good, because you want to kind of, as a beginner, you want to kind of force yourself to be able to recognize like what is this color actually. But if you aren't color picking it, then I'm saying you're doing a pretty good job figuring out the colors by yourself. Woohoo, yeah. So I know you are not done, but there are a lot of missing values right now that is making the piece feel overall too bright, and you don't have a very defined compositional thumbnail. So if you look at it real quick in black and white, you see everything's very gray scale, whereas this one has some darker areas. It's not quite black, but that darker area is helping set off the figure's silhouette. So what you're gonna have to do, first things first, before you move on, we are going to definitely have to darken up this whole section so that the figures are popping out a little bit more. So what you're going to want to notice in this color palette is everything is very leaning towards greens, orange, yellows, reds. So any dark values, you want to keep it within the blue greens, the blues, whereas the light values will keep it within the yellow greens, the yellow orange, the very brick red kind of colors. And so this part right here, even if she is wearing a blue dress, under that green lighting, what is blue and green, it's going to create a very blue-green, very more towards a green kind of color rather than this super bright blue. Same for here, see that? So I want to first push your shadow a little bit closer to your blue-greens. Now, of course, there's going to be a little bit nuances. See, when it gets brighter, it gets closer to that green. So I'll take a little bit of green real quick, brighten it up a little bit. Okay, same for this part right here. I don't know if I can, you know what? I would just have to make you work for it. Okay, we're going to darken this part up. We can always bring back that light later, okay? So make sure you get that blues in there. Blues, blues, blues. Okay, see how that already pops out the figures a little bit more. And then we do have to move our figures just a slight bit to the left so they are actually, you know, lined up behind that window. So we get that really nice silhouette. I'll get rid of that later. Eager-diggers. Okay, I'm gonna cut her out and move her over a slight bit. Slightly down too. Okay, not too much. Same for your figure right here. And when it comes to exaggerating colors, it's cool that you want to try this kind of bluish color, but you have to also remember what is the color of the light. So if you are choosing the light to be this blue-green color, then you should not use this blue color just because it won't make much sense. You should probably shift this blue highlight towards a seafoam green. Not sure what movie this is from, but I'm sure Jesse has an answer for that. It has Priyanka Chopra, is that her name in it? So you could probably look her up and see what movies she's been in. Little cropping so our piece feels a little bit more framed. I'm also going to scoot over this dark area because we are missing a little bit more darkness on her to kind of break her out of shadow. Then let me bring back their tabel. And you also want to pay attention, he has a gap right here between his table, so I don't understand why his table is kind of smack right next to him. He feels way too close to that table, so we're gonna fix that up real quick. And I think you don't want to do any of the figures in the background, that's fine, but you may want to just put in like little blobs of the table at least, so you have a little bit more structure. So shadow, don't forget him. Take your soft brush, really big soft brush, swoop it under there. And you're gonna push it more towards the warmth because your lights are so cool. Not too warm though. I want to make sure our cool still looks sort of blue-green. And let's talk a little bit about how color mixes, especially when you've got like this greenish tint all over it. So if this table is originally like this creamish color, if we have this green tint on it, that means even if you think in your mind you're like, oh, it's this cream color, it's actually gonna be more of a yellow color. So take your color picker and you see, wow, it's basically smack right there in the neon green area. It's not actually the color that you chose. See, yours is you're thinking cream, but in reality, because you have that tinted green color, you gotta shift every of your color that you're thinking of towards the green values. So we gotta make sure this part is green, and if you're thinking this is brown, then you are actually in the yellows region. See how that reads more as brown because everything is so green. So color is very, 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 very relative. You do want to pay attention to what colors you're putting next to each other. See how that reads more believable in the scene? Let me chop that part out. And then bring back that extra table that is sitting right in front of them. And I'm reading this as like a sort of slight brown color. So again, what did we say brown was? Actually, anything supposedly that you think is in this region is actually going to be shifted more towards the greens, okay? So if it's actually here, maybe it's actually in this area. So I'm gonna maybe push it down just a slight bit. And you can see it reads a little bit more brown. Okay, see, this is the brown that you're thinking. The brown that you're thinking would be right about here, but in reality, we're actually sitting in that yellow-orange kind of region. And then this part is even more green, so we gotta push it even further, and then make sure you bring it down because it is slightly darker. Let me really quickly fix up that little edge right there. It's kind of whack, bothering me. Extend that there. Let me merge those two down so I am not going back and forth. Okay, so what are you gonna notice about this character right here? His outfit is way too out of place. Like the colors don't feel like they fit that greenish tone that you've gotten. And this is the reason why. So you think it's blue because you're reading this as a blue shirt. I don't think I mastered it, but I definitely feel a little bit more confident than I was like a couple years ago. It's taken me a long time to sort of figure out like relative color theory. So what I usually think about when I'm thinking about relative color theory is I'm trying to think about mixing colors. So if there's a color, if I think it's blue, but the overall light is green, then you have to think what is blue and green together, right? So it becomes blue-green. So anything you read as blue is actually going to be blue-green. Whereas if you think it's red, it's actually going to be more of a yellow-orange, orangey color, okay? So you're going to push everything on this right here, this color wheel right here, more towards your greens. If it's a purple, you're going to maybe say, here you can test it a little bit. add a little bit of purple, and you're gonna see it actually pushes towards your blues and your blue-greens. And so that is how you would figure out the color, especially when you're like doing little color film studies. There is like the easier method where you just apply an overall tint to it and you just paint using the own color knowledge that you do have. But if you are trying to be like a more direct artist where you can just immediately add the color in there, then you definitely do need to study a little bit and understand your color theory. So I would say that pink is a no-go. It's drawing attention away from our characters. Our characters are the main focus, okay, Jesse? We do not want them. I also want to reduce his size. He was like huge compared to Priyanka, like, or is that Selena? Oh, it's Selena. Okay, yeah, Selena. Look, he's like, his head is huge, so he looks like he's closer to us. So shrink that a tad bit, so his head is about the same size. And I'm gonna scooch him over a little bit, give him a little bit more breathing room, see how much breathing room there is. That way they feel more framed together. Just scoot him over a little bit and then widen the canvas, because Selena needs more room too. You want to always make sure there's enough space next to your character so they don't feel like they're trapped inside the composition. Boop, boop, boop. Okay, and then you'll see, because your light source is so close right here, scoot that baby over a little bit. You don't want to make things too symmetrical, so maybe I'm going to bring this higher up here, and then bring this slightly lower, and shrink that size a little bit. So even if you want to, like, you know, change the spots of the light sources, you do want to make sure not too symmetrical, or else everything's gonna look too perfect and it just gives you that uncanny sense. Okay. And so make sure we don't have too much brightness up on top, so we are really drawn towards our central figures. So I'm going to bring down that brightness a little bit. Same for here, slightly bring that down a little bit. And again, if I'm reading this as brown, what color do you think this actually is? Take our color picker, and you'll see it's actually sitting quite close to that yellow-green section. So see? But when you put it next to, say, blue-green color, yeah, that yellow-green. See, it's like basically yellow. And that's why it reads more as a brown. Now, if you add a little, push it just a little bit closer to that yellow, and add a little bit of saturation to it, you're gonna get a slight bit more brown. See that? Even more brown. And so when you push it further down, you're adding more warmth to it. So this compared to this is much warmer. So what is this color? So slightly more warm, see? And then let me make sure Selena's got her back. We'll talk about her color choices in a hot sec. Okay, so now that we've gotten that, you see as we get further and further away from the central composition, the lighting's getting cooler and cooler. And that is a very smart choice of the filmmaker, because we as viewers are very drawn towards warm colors. So like, especially in a very cool scene, any pops of warmth is where our eyes are immediately drawn to. So he has chosen to frame the picture with all the warm colors in the center, and then as you're getting farther away to the edges, you're getting cooler colors. Hence why if you're getting farther away from the edges, the greens definitely do gotta cool down a little bit. That way we as, you know, an audience don't get distracted. Okay, we can use that color, it's fine. And then that's why he has that shadow section right there. So I'm just gonna put in a lump right there. That way it frames our picture a little bit better. Take a little bit of this shadow right here, same thing. And you break up that shadow a little bit by adding a slightly lighter blue. Doesn't have to be perfect. But you see how this shadow right here helps you kind of move away from looking at the sides too much. Slight burst of color right there, not too bright. Yeah, just put that there for now. Now her highlight right here, we have to push it more towards green because again we said our light source is green, hence why we are going to our yellows. There you go. And I'll make sure that always is closer to the highlights. We have a little bit more warmth. So I'm going more in towards the saturation and a slightly lighter. That way you get that warmth in there, okay? All right, so that's for that background. Real quick way to get the background here. You're gonna notice all of these in the background are this kind of greenish color, right? So it's the blue-green color. Just gonna map it in there with a chunky brush. Doesn't have to be perfect because this is again a study. Okay, and then we have this main highlight right here. Not too bright. One easy way to get away with this highlight, we're gonna go into our blue-green. Come into our hard light layer and just add it in there. And you can see how that really gets all those colors that you want in there without working too hard. Especially if we are not trying to focus on this. Screen tablet. No, I don't use the screen tablet because, like I said, it takes up it requires you to plug it into an HDMI port. And since I use a second monitor, I don't have that many HDMI ports on my laptop. So if I have to use my screen tablet, I'm not able to plug in my second monitor. And so I'm not able to, you know, do too many things at once. And it also requires me to plug it into a wall plug, which just kind of pisses me off because I don't have that many wall plugs. Especially since I just set up a standing table recently. So like my setup is has to stay limited to this amount of change. So even though it's like a really cool screen tablet, I don't use it as often as I really should. Oops. Oops. Oh my gosh. All right, you see how green it is over here? We're gonna real quick adjust that color, bump it down more to the greens. Alright, I'm just basically really cheating here. And then I see that warm light shadow. So I'm gonna take my soft opacity brush, bring in a slightly greenish kind of yellow color. Again, it's not perfect, but it'll do the job for what we want to happen here. It's just to study the color a little bit. Meh. And then just to sell the illusion, I'm just gonna give it a little bit of a Gaussian blur, not that much. Okay, bring it down a tad bit. And that's one way you can really quickly create those highlights, especially in these studies, without working too hard. Because if you're actually going to, you know, faithfully recreate everything, then you definitely want to take your time and actually study how the colors work, but we're just trying to get the overall feel of it right now. Lasso tool, yes, it's my Lord and Savior. Anyone who does not know about lasso tool is sorely missing out. Cough, cough. It was me a couple years ago. Did not know about lasso tools, and I did not use it very often. And it wasn't until I watched like a couple of Lois's process videos that she releases on her Instagram that I was like, huh, maybe I should consider using a lasso tool to make my life easier to get that really smooth, clean lines. Okay, so let's get that table in there. And again, remember what I said, we want to keep our shadows cooler, so I'm desperately trying to push it more towards the blue-green without going too far. And then I'm just going to get that really nice highlight in there, push it towards the warms. Slightly. There we go. And the extra pops of reds are quite important here. So even if you don't want to draw the other characters, you kind of do want to include a little bit of those extra pops of colors. And you can do it really easily just by doing what I'm doing, right? I want it more saturated. There you go, brick red. real quickly. Jean jacket, if it's blue, what color is it actually going to be? Teal, exactly. So that is why I have basically made his jean jacket this kind of greenish teal color. And his highlight is going to be that green color. See that? Green, slightly teal. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but you do want to make sure you get that value in there, correct? There you go. That way, you know, it pops out. And you can cheat a little bit, take a little bit of some of the colors that you see in the other, not too reliant on references. So obviously when you're first starting out, you're definitely going to want to rely on references a lot. And it's just with a lot more practice and learning that what is the goal of you using the reference. Like if you're trying to study color, then obviously don't stress too much about getting every single little details correct. Focus on what is the color relationship between all these things. Like we've just been doing so far for this film study, I've been asking you over and over, okay, understand if we're reading this as blue or green, what is this color going to turn out to become, right? And even for this highlight right here, I didn't go too much detail. I just did little blocks of color. Even for these figures, blocks of color is good enough. Right? And if I want to warm it up, just like that. And I need that extra pop of red, so what am I gonna do? I'm just gonna throw that in there. I'm not worrying too much about whether this is a person or not. Get that red in there. Slightly desaturate that color and to create that shadow. And you help create her hair just by doing a little bit of highlight. Oh, make sure it's more blue. But not that blue. Okay. See how that just creates that illusion of the hair? Figure? Right there. You've got yourself a relatively solid background that you're most likely just going to blur a little bit because you do want to make the focus on our characters. So just a little bit, just an eensy bit. See how that makes the whole spiel about being detailed kind of pointless, moot point. So I'm just gonna make sure we get that dark value in there. Nothing should pop out on the sides too much, okay? All right, and let's talk about the character's colors. So what color did we say his jean jacket should be? Teal, correct? So we're gonna try to change all our values real quick right now. So right here, this color we thought as blue. We gotta push more towards green. And the way I like to start usually is to start with the shadows. And so for the shadows, we have mentioned we want it to be blue, this blue, right? So we're going to take some of color from our original color palette, okay? In this month's challenge, I talked about how to choose cohesive color palettes. And so this is how you make sure your overall piece looks unified. It's you repeat colors that you've already had. Don't be afraid to, come back and repeat a color so long as you don't use it too much. Yes, analogous. Well, not necessarily analogous colors. So when you say analogous colors, to me, it sounds like you're using colors that are straight from a row like this. But in reality, some color palettes are not going to respond like that. So some color palettes are dichotomous color palettes. So meaning it's complementary color. So if you have a purple and then yellow. So you want to use colors that are more in this area And then in this area, if you are choosing a color palette that uses those two main colors. And then, so you should choose only two really vibrant colors, usually. And then everything else should be a kind of complementary, slightly desaturated version of those colors. Yeah, analogous colors do work well together, but you don't want to limit yourself to just analogous colors. Quick water break. And let's finish up right here. I'm not stressing too much about being super accurate about the folds in the shirt. What you do want to be accurate about is the shadows and the light areas. So right here, you're going to see that it's a slightly desaturated version of this teal color. And it's going to be about the same value. See that? And then what you're seeing right here are just the highlights. So I'm going to real quick use my lasso tool and zoom in a little bit, not too much. Want to make sure you stay pretty far away still and just get those highlights in there. And you're going to see that you're going to want to keep it, say, to that green color, but maybe I'll lower the value a little bit so it's not so jaunting to our eyes. And you'll notice there's a little bit of a highlight along this edge of the shirt slash jacket because of that light bouncing off from the table. And then same for here, make sure you don't have too much of that bright value because this is a part that's in shadow. Now the hair is way too bright, especially for this type of lighting. I would say you're gonna want to bring it down to at least here and then use a mix between your cool blue and your warm red right here to recreate that shadow area. That way it reads very much like a realistic shadow because real shadows are very nuanced. This color right here, we're gonna say it's actually more of that murky yellow orange, not that orange that you're reading it as. So just take a little bit of here and apply it. See, again, I'm not worried too much about the details. Just trying to get the colors in there. Same for this one. If it reads more orange, then likely chances are it's kind of over here. Let's push it down a little bit. There you go. See, it's not quite in that orange red that we had there. We need to push it a little bit closer, especially for that top section. Now you can keep the hair that you made for him if you want. I just do want you to caution about the ear shape a little bit and the sideburns. Don't go too overboard about it. And again, I'm gonna change the color of this highlight because we mentioned it doesn't make much sense for this highlight to be blue, especially if the lighting is all this seafoam green. Okay, and then we're just gonna use I gotta push it a little bit more to that yellow green. And if we are focusing on light and value, don't worry too much about drawing eyes right now. That way you can really focus and get all the values correct. So this ear should be actually in shadow. This whole section of the face is in shadow, and then there's a little bit of that brighter light. We'll push it slightly more to the red section to get that pinkish color that you want, and then keep it there. Okay. One thing that your eyebrows were doing incorrectly is because his face is sort of on the side, so this part is very close basically to that side of the face, so it shouldn't start rounding down until the very end right here. And then since I got the lighting there, I want to make sure we get that lighting on his forehead too, because you see that really bright light is what sells it. Yeah, and for more informative about colors is very difficult. Even I don't claim to know all the secrets to it. And I'm going to get this back rim glow that we desperately need. Yeah, I don't like the color wheel. I feel like the color wheel is requires you to very much already know your colors very well so you can color pick it immediately. But I feel like the bar, you can kind of do a little bit mathematician, rational, logical thinking. So like if I want to push colors warmer, I push downwards or I push towards here. Or if I want to shift colors, you know, more towards the blues, then, you know, I gotta go higher. I'm gonna push this more towards reds. And then make sure I up my saturation, but lighten up the color. That way we still keep that same kind of value. And you see how that already, you know, pops out a lot more than before. And then you just finish it off with that neck rim glow. Oops, rim glow. Same for the jacket. I want to make sure that jacket gets that nice rim glow. So I'm gonna exaggerate the color a tad bit. Right here, up the saturation, lighten the value. Get that really saturated blue in there. Alright, and then for Selena, again, we gotta fix up a lot of the colors. Same idea, we're gonna do a little bit of magic. So the darkest areas is going to be that cool blue color that we have. And then as I get closer to the highlights, we maybe can push it back towards our kind of reddish dark color. And before I forget it, I'm gonna make sure we have that highlight behind her hair so we can actually see her hair. blur it a little bit. Subsurface scattering on the nose. Maybe, but again, remember the point of this kind of film study is to focus on general color. So it's only after you get you general color can you then come in for the sweet details, okay? If you go in for the details too fast, you're gonna get lost in rendering one thing super perfect, and then you zoom out, you're like, I really done myself dirty. And for her hair, I would say, look at it from far away. You see there's this bun shape, right? So we're gonna get that bun shape. And then you get the extra stuff. I'm gonna push it more towards the warmth. Then you're gonna do the extra stuff. Like, don't worry about all the fancy shenanigans that you have going on. Start with the shadow, general silhouette of her hair. She has the extra bump right here. So when you don't have that extra bump, her hair does look a little bit flat. And again, I am going to rid yourself of some eyes. This is not the time for those eyes. Yes, less is more, especially when you are not trying to, you know, accurately depict a well-known figure or like drawing a face, and your focus is like studying these colors. Okay, so she is actually more in shadow than you would think. Squint your eyes and you'll see, wow, a lot of shadows. And this is especially true for her arm too. See how that is a big ass shadow? Yours is a skinny legend. And when you are doing backlit lighting, if you're not enough shadow, it's not going to read as backlit lighting, and it's just going to read very flat. And it's very confusing for the viewer audience. And then you'll want to pay attention to the angle here for her arm. I don't even bother rendering her hands. See, you can totally do stick figure hands. Okay, and that will still work as we are not aiming to be perfect today. We just want to get a little bit better. So zoom out real quick, make sure her height isn't too high, and I'm thinking she's a little too high. So let us chop off like 1/4 of an inch. I'm gonna get rid of all these blues so we can figure out what the hell this color actually is and not distract ourselves from the previous assumption that we've made. And one thing I've noticed with your proportions, usually for the faces, you tend to make the noses a little bit too small. So I do highly recommend you push yourself to make it a little bit bigger. Don't be afraid. My British accent. My disgustingly fake British accent. Oh, get that posh in there. No, but seriously, you want to get away from the thinking that noses got to be really small. Noses need to be able to breathe, so actually don't be afraid. Yes, big noses. Big noses mean big egos, okay? We gotta get more confidence in our characters. Yeah, from drawing anime, no, I totally understand. But there is a time and place for small noses. You can do that from front profile, but you'll notice. Okay, we're gonna quick anime lesson. I did draw anime for like years as a kid, so I understand your tendency. So with anime, typically you have a tendency to draw noses small because, you know, small noses, cute girls. Kawaii, kawaii. Those kind of things, right? Small noses works. But even from side profile anime, even with like the small noses, you still gotta have like a certain proportion, right? Like the nose, as small as it is, will still stick out to a certain extent in order for it to read as like properly proportioned. So real quick, anime side profile. So I'm gonna real quick steal someone's art. I promise I'll credit is apparently this is Issa on Twitter, so one color. But you'll see, even if her nose is small, it still sticks out to a certain extent. So what you are lacking is that sticky outy part. And that's a no bueno. Yeah, they look like muzzles because that's like basic general shape of the side profile. And like we said, we always want to work smart, not hard. So that is why we just simplify the mouth and the nose all together. Don't work too hard. See that? Your anime face. Okay. Did I get every of the structure right? Okay, then let us work on getting that shoulder shrug. And that is in part due to the way we place the arm. She's got to have it higher up. See how there's like such a small gap between her neck and her shoulder? And that means whoopie doop. I'm gonna make sure, you know what, I'm just gonna put these on different layers so I don't give myself a headache. And that is how you get that effect of her shoulders kind of raised up as she's sipping on her soda. Put that in there. And to get that hunch, you really need to round out that back right here. and do less showing up front. That way it seems like her whole body is kind of tucked inside. Okay, see how that helps a lot? And I'm also gonna make her head a little bit bigger. It's too small right now. Yeah, exactly. So like when you don't when you leave it empty, you lose a lot of that extra pop of color that you see here and the shadows to help break up that shape. If you just had that green, then it really feels way too flat. Whereas if you just add like a very generic form of the character and just include like the pops, the very important pops of color, and blur it out, it feels a little bit more, you know, more lively. Okay, did we get that? All right, let's go in and work on our highlights. And so you see here that orange color. I'm gonna say maybe it's actually closer to that yellowish tone. Push it a little bit into saturation. Okay, same for up top. This part right here, it looks very much gray and is actually a very desaturated yellow-green. So finish off that highlight here so you can actually see the hair end. Without that extra little highlight here, you don't really see that hair at all. There you go, bring it over a little bit. And then let's get that rim glow, which is pretty important. So again, I am going to choose a very light color, basically almost white. And then add it in there. So you're gonna wanna get it on the gray is the gateway. Honestly, I definitely feel like white is way too stark of a color. So you have to very deliberately choose this color. Like look at how this color pops in this whole picture, right? Like the only time you're really seeing that white is you don't even see a white here, right? Like it's not even white. Like this is still not even white. There's no way, like this is maybe the closest you'll get to that white, and it's like the very center of that light. And instead for here, see, it's not quite white. You're gonna outline that rim glow along the face. Make sure to get that nose in there. And then again, I am not choosing white for this. I am going to choose a very light yellow. I think you just bring back your eyebrows because eyebrows are very important. And now for the jean jacket again. So it's also going to be that blue color, but again, this jean jacket is like slightly lighter. So it's actually going to take a little bit more of that green quality, blue-green quality that we see. So I'm going to make sure we shift it a little bit more towards that blue. And already it's starting to feel more like that jean jacket. Whoosh, whoosh. I don't want that. I don't want to I don't want these colors right there. Okay, blue, green. And then for this light area, definitely very much the green, green. And then to break it up, we add those highlights, those frays that we see here, and that's going to be this yellow-green kind of color. You bring back a little bit of shadow so it's not super duper light. And then for the cup, same idea. I want to make sure that cool light is getting on that top part of the cup. Slightly warmer shadow here. I think they have a little bit of that yellow bottom and also that bounce light. And then we're going to make sure we get some of those super bright areas here. I'm not even drawing the fingers. It's too much work, too much effort for a study. We're just going to get the highlight there. And again, we're going to need to desaturate that color. See how that becomes that gray? Bring back some of that darkness. A little bit of that light here. And there you go. That is how you get that really bright kind of backlighting. And then the only things you would have left to do really quickly is to fix this gap right here first. And then just really quickly come in with a hard light. And then add in those extra blooms that you have seen on the light here. Right here, make sure you erase away that center part. And you just go back and forth and choosing what color tones. You're just gonna go between these few colors and make sure you erase away. Cool, it's too bright. There you go. And that's how you would, you know, in general get that lighting study a little bit nicer, fix up some of the anatomy issues, most importantly. And then maybe we can make these characters just a little bit bigger so they feel more important in the scene. You can like exaggerate a little bit. There you go. If they feel much more up in front and center. So that's how you would do that one. So let us go on to Greta's now, because it's been like an hour also. And Greta's, I believe she gave me some references for colors, but in general, this is a original fan art piece. And we gotta get that spicy fang. So main issues that I'm seeing here, first and foremost, is perspective, and perspective is a bitch and a half to learn. So let us draw our perspective grids. So far I am seeing one vanishing point from here. So everything is vanishing from here, but I feel like this right here makes the vanishing point much farther away than this part right here is showing me. Yeah, of course, Jesse. I will be including the PSD files in a Google Drive, and then I'll send you guys the link to it via the Patreon. And I'll also post the PNG version or /JPEG version so you can see just the difference between your original version and the finished, you know, the revised stuff that you gotta work on. See just how much the darkness really helps you bring out the characters, and that extra space feels nicer. All right, so right here, we may want to give a little bit more space. Right now, it feels very tight, and you do not have much space for the characters to kind of exist on their own. And so I would say first things first, let's see how I can change the perspective of this. Okay, let's see. Layer via copy this baby. And then there. So I would give it a little bit, at least that much more space. Even that much space would be great, but there we go. And then let's see if I can do this. Work my magic. This may be the time to bust out magnetic lasso. I don't typically like using it that much just because I feel like it doesn't very precisely grab what I want. It's so finicky, and I don't want to waste the time trying to fine tune it. So I just use the regular freeform lasso or the polygonal one. But there are times when I just accept defeat and just fix it up later using free lasso. Okay, get that baby out. It's close enough. And how are we going to do this? Let's see. Okay, we'll just have to manually fix this. Shoop. Shoop. So what I've done basically right now is I've basically extended your vanishing point and I've given you a tad more space for your characters, but now the issue comes is that power is in the wrong perspective. So ways I can see you going about fixing this is you make power let me get a brush. You make power stand straight here looking at us like this while she's drinking. Okay, so that's one option you can do because I've pushed back the perspective. The other option is to basically change the perspective of the background to match powers, and that would require you to let me have a, you know what, let me just choose one of this. You're gonna want to bring the perspective this way, so everything has to line up like this. So that would mean Aki so we're looking at everything from top down, meaning I want to push. Okay, so if we're looking at it from top down, that means everything is kind of, you know, this way. Everything standing is this way, so your characters would be standing here. So Aki right here, Denji here. This is how I sketch. Stick figures galore, okay? Don't worry too much about the details. Stick figures galore. Shift it a little bit. Shift it a little bit. And then maybe have your machine here, your little vending machine, I guess. Let's see, I'm trying to figure out the perspective of power because actually maybe she's not that top down. Scratch that. We're going to do a slightly less top down. So actually our horizon line might be over here. The reason why I am kind of going back and forth is because if we look at Power's perspective, we are looking at her from top down like this, right? And if she's top down like this, that means we also got to give a little bit more of the background. Hence why I'm kind of trying to figure out whether I should have it lean this way or straight. Maybe we don't get to see the rooftop. And then the vending machine's right here. Alright, so my dilemma is if we want to see all the characters, then I do have to implore that we maybe need to not have the perspective so angled upwards. So this would be a little bit easier for you to get all the characters in there. But if you are trying to keep power in this really cool perspective, this really interesting perspective, I'm gonna have to use a little brain power so we can figure this out, okay? I am not a perspective master either, so this is really giving me a run for my money. Off to an improv show, have fun! Feel free to check back in after you're done with the improv show, and then check the VOD if you want to see how I figured out this conundrum. Or if I even figured it out, we'll see. Honest, I think the issue is that usually with these perspectives you have it a vertical composition, so it feels a lot better. Like Lanaya. And then you have like little peaks like this perspective. We can fix it like this maybe. Denji right here. Again, I'm super loosey-goosey right now because we want to make sure that way. I think you can have all of your characters fit in if everything's on this kind of rounded out fisheye lens. Just have them a little bit closer so we break up the monotony. Vending machine. And instead maybe the sign would be right here. Pochita. Is that what they were doing? Yeah, Pochita Mart. With the little sliding door. That's one way you could fix it, and then just have a couple of shadows here to kind of, you know, break up the shapes a little bit so we see it more unified. So that's one way you can fix it. Let's see, let's merge these into a folder. The other way I mentioned was just to really quickly, simply add her right there, smack in the middle. And maybe instead I would give just a little bit more space to your characters so they don't feel too trapped. And that way you can also see a little bit more of the environment that you worked so hard to design. And you can also see the sign that Pochita's in. Hello to the new viewers. We're just reviewing one of my disciples, Greta's pieces of work. We're trying to fix her perspective because perspective is a bitch and I have to learn. Okay, so really messy kind of fixing, but who cares? You get the idea and you will go back and fix it and maybe present it to me next month where we will then talk more in depth. Let's take that. So instead of using this, you know, really gray color that basically drowns out all your colors, let's take a little bit of time to use a little bit more color. So say we're gonna use slightly cool-ish. If you're gonna have cool colors here, I think we want to balance it out with a warm color here, even though it doesn't make too much sense, but it will help your picture read a little bit nicer than, say, just keeping that kind of gray color that you have. So if you really do want to get that cool color, you can take a little bit of a gradient. So this cool blue-gray kind of color, and then transition it into that warmer purple so it seems a little bit more believable. And then, ooh, yo, 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 yo. Break up that monotony. Same thing for Angel. You do want to make sure Angel, pretend this is a light source. That way you get a little bit more interesting things going on with your characters. So soft light it. And it doesn't hurt to have that extra little bloom glow, just like that. That extra space also allows you to draw Angel's wings in its full glory. And I would recommend we change the color of one of those wings that's in shadow. And typically with a convenience store, there's going to be a slight shadow here. So I'm going to take this teal color that we have, push it towards the blues, slightly increase the saturation, and that's how you're going to choose the color for the shadow. So maybe I'll pretend this is like the tables that they eat at. That way it's a little bit more interesting than that just really flat, bland kind of storefront that we have going. I'm also gonna bring his arm back because I feel bad for deleting it. I would also recommend maybe putting little flyers on front like this to break up the monotony some more. This is really your opportunity to throw some more Easter eggs that you really love doing. And as regards for more of the color, the neon purple pinkish colors that you showed me in your color palette, in the examples, I definitely think you have some room here to do that. Let me make sure we fix this up first. Okay, so you can totally add like little clouds up here that are those like really pretty gradient clouds that you were showing. So you want to keep it within this color group, not too far. That way it doesn't feel too jolting of a transition. Okay, we're gonna first get that sky color down in there. And then we're gonna push it towards warms. And then real quickly, we're gonna add that cloud in there if you so wish. And I'm just gonna choose a default blue color first. And you can sort of, take inspo from other people, how they did their clouds. And just do a quick, gradient. Just like that too, if you so wished. You could also just break up the chunks a little bit using little streaks of that really pretty color. You might want to consider breaking up the silhouette just a little bit more. Who knows? Maybe put something in here, like some kind of tree, some kind of windows. If you put a tree here, then you could potentially add a little bit more of those teal colors that you really like. Or something or whatnot. That's something you'll probably have to think about once you figure out the perspective and the composition. Then you can worry about the colors. And so those are two ways you could potentially fix the composition. Now, in regards to fangs, we did a quick little teeth tutorial, but for Power, in order to see her spicy, sexy fangs, you do need to bring out that color, bring out that value. So let's bump it up a little bit. Treat it as part of a light source. especially if you are, you know, drawing teeth. Her teeth are gonna actually be more at an angle than that. And it's actually gonna be more shadowed. That way you can really make the top teeth pop out. And before we finish off her teeth, we gotta make sure we get her little gums to get that sexy vibe. So the gums are gonna wrap around the teeth like this, a little bit of a triangle, curved triangle. Only a little bit, not too much. If you do too much, it's gonna start looking very teeth bared rather than sexy, simplified teeth. I believe Power's teeth are kind of sharp on its own, so that's why I'm going in and adding all these little details. If her teeth weren't sharp like that, it would just be, you know, sexy teeth. Same thing for the bottom. Don't forget the little highlight that happens. And I just want to make sure it's dark enough. And that's how you might simplify her teeth. Make sure we have enough curve so it's really reading like it's part of her mouth. Because again, teeth are very much like clam shapes that are curved inwards. And to make her mouth feel much wider open, you want to add a little bit extra shadow along the side of the teeth. So she definitely looks like her mouth is like a lot more wide open, right? So I won't mention this yet, but you do realize there is a little bit of a perspective issue, Greta. Look at your oval here. It should be that same exact oval down here, but smaller. Right? So make sure you fix that. These two should be bigger, parallel, same thickness. And then let me see. You haven't done a lot of rendering, so I won't talk about that just yet, but I did want to just make sure you get the whole, fix the perspective issue. So 2 ways to fix it. Either change Power's perspective, expand the canvas just a little bit so you see a little bit more of the characters. I would also even make Denji a little bit bigger because remember, he is closer to us as an audience in POV, so he needs to feel that way. So he has to be a little bit closer to us as an audience. So make that a little bit bigger. Oops. I would also, you know, consider some of the things you can put here. Like you could put a couple more buildings here. You can put a little stairwell right here. You could put a whole ass building right there. Don't know. Either that or you can just, you know, extend the canvas vertically so it really forces us to look at Power's perspective and then have all the characters in the background kind of in the distance. So you don't have to worry too much about all that. I would maybe make Denji and Aki a little bit bigger, just a little bit, and then leave Angel in the background so they're kind of like zoomed out in the distance, and we get this really nice fisheye perspective. Okay, for the last one, we are going to be talking about kitties, and I believe they're new disciple. So welcome our favorite beloved disciple. Basically for this one, I would say so far I'm really liking all the textures. The composition seems okay so far, though I would say this emptiness right here, I would fill it up with some more of those leaves. So let me just throw my little brush. I don't have your exact brush, so you'll just forgive me. Let me see if I can mimic it like this. Yeah, we'll do that. Okay, so I would totally make this a little bit bigger and then get rid of some of this so it definitely feels more filled up and it kind of brings the viewer's eyes towards us this way or this way. So brings us this way, fill a little bit of gap right here, just not too much. And then that way you have an opportunity to really nicely add some shadows. So I'm gonna take a slightly cooler pinkish purple. I don't know what shadow color you were planning to do. Maybe I'll actually do this color. Yeah. You know what? Yeah, I'll do this color. I like this color. We'll take a tealish, coolish color since it seems like this picture is relatively cool. Maybe we'll make the lighting warmer. It depends on what you want. Like if you are planning to do a cool lighting, then definitely we are not going to use this color. But if you are doing a warmer lighting, then for sure we're going to use this teal color since we're going to mimic some of that teal colors that you have here. And then I'm going to pretend this is part of that cherry tree. Let's see if I got a good brush for this. And you always want to make sure the general shape is good, even if you add all the little speckles, or else it kind of defeats the purpose of the whole picture. Now you can do it like this, add the shadow like this, and then I'm gonna maybe make it a little bit darker so we can see the contrast. There you go. And then real quick, you can just add a little bit of warmth. Maybe we'll take a little bit of pink so it matches that pink that we've got going on. that way. And when I'm adding these like little spots of light, I'm making sure I don't group them up too close together and they're not the same size or the same shape ever. And so I'm just drawing little ovals basically. And then I'll just take a little bit of this light and come in between. Maybe something like that. Another option you can take is don't do it like this and bring out your hard light layer, and you're gonna manually, you know, break up the chunks of light. So if we have such, say, pink, and you're gonna do those, you know, cool lights. And you're gonna treat all this value that you've already like painted as like your dark value, then for sure you can do it like this. But right now what I can say for sure is that there's not enough contrast. Like this part is way too bright. You would need to at least bump it down a little bit so you can actually see the contrast of, you know, the lighting that you have going on, right? See how that helps a little bit? It's not that much, but you can see the difference between the lighting. I'm gonna change the lighting. I don't like it. I don't like how cool it is. I'll change it to this one maybe. Potentially. Actually, yeah, you're gonna see I go back and forth. You left a little bit of shadow on the right glass and on the top by the left arrow. This one over here? Maybe. I'm not sure what you mean by that. Left a little bit of shadow on the right glass on the top left by the arrow. Arrow. Arrow dokoda. But regardless, what I'm basically doing is I'm trying to break up this really bland shape right now. Like all the colors look nice and all, but you don't have a lot of contrast. So I'm trying to see if I can somehow push you to do a little bit more contrast to elevate this piece a little bit more. Because if we look at it from Navigator right now, this right here is being drowned out. Like I do not see it at all. Same with the cherry trees, drowned out. It's super cool, so it gives me the vibe of a winter scene, but even with winter scene, you want to have slight little pops of that warmer color. That way you don't get super bored looking at it. Maybe do it like this. I think your color scheme is I don't quite like it, so we're gonna do a quick adjustment. I can take that. And then what you're gonna have to do is do a quick color reassignment. I would say instead of this orange, maybe make it a salmon pink. And then you can keep, like, you know, the burst of warmth to that light that you have. Oh, shush, 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 shush. That way, you know, you get the really nice orange tones that you like while also keeping a very harmonious color palette. This I will push downwards, make it a little bit darker. Okay, same with this one. I'm not quite sure what this is. I feel like it's like a billboard. And if it's a billboard, perhaps you may want to put some decorations in it so it's not so boring. These also need a little bit of color. You can do it very graphically. This, push it slightly. Don't just have one tone of shadow. You want to always, you know, bring a little bit of variation so you don't get bored looking at it. Probably make sure you add a shadow for this one, add shadow for this one too. I'm gonna say maybe the side of the road is gonna start here. Okay, and then because the sidewalk is kind of raised up, the side of the road in turn is going to get a nice cast shadow that's slightly purple, blue color. So you kind of, you know, get a more nuanced kind of color palette rather than just the same three colors. And then I'm just gonna add a tansy wincy blue color to the top of the sky so it's not so white and monotonous. Same for right here. That way your cherry blossoms have, you know, some contrast to them. So before, after, I just shifted the colors a little bit to make it feel a little bit more uniform. I probably, you know, just do a couple more things here and there to help you along your journey. So when it comes to choosing color palettes, you want to keep in mind you don't want to make the colors way too different. So if you have a lot of pinks and purples and then you bring in the teal color, I would say the orange isn't quite the best choice just because orange is a little too vibrant, and especially since all of your other colors were so dull, that orange is really going to stick out too much when you just want a little bit pop of like interest in your piece. So if you settle for like a slightly closer color to the pinks, say like a salmon pink, then you still get the orange that you want, but it's a little bit closer and easier for the viewer to digest in the eye. I would also maybe decide on your lighting choice. If you decide to do a backlighting, then you can get a really interesting kind of shadow pattern. So what is this? I don't know what it is. If you decide to do it like that, then you can get like a shadow pattern that's like extends the canvas and helps you draw the viewer's attentions a little bit more. Like you see how that kind of fills up this space a little bit? Because right now this is very empty, so you can either choose to do a shadow, you can choose to put a, I don't know, a yellow orange thing, like a fire hydrant right here. You could choose to put a bus stop line right here or something, but just some kind of pop of color to break up this really empty corner right there. So before, it's very cool tone. The colors aren't too bad, but it's lacking a lot of, you know, contrast. After a little bit more contrast, a little bit more direction in the tone of lighting, because lighting is super duper important, especially when you want to communicate like mood, communicate a certain an atmosphere, and without lighting you're really not going to get that at all, no matter how well your composition is, no matter how well, you know, you choose your colors. All right, and so those are the 4 critique. We are just right on time. I will be including the PSD files for these edited versions in the Patreon. I'll email you a link to the Google Drive so you can download them. For some of these, obviously, there's not that many things that I changed, but you can see in detail what I did change. Like here, you can see it. I changed a lot of things. Let me see. Like here, you can see all of the changes I made, whereas Stefan Misu, since you merged everything, I just merged everything to make it easier for me, but I did keep a couple of things. What is this? Overlay. It's like the slightest thing ever. I'm just gonna merge it down. Screw that. Yeah, so basically, let me see if I can. You know what? No. You guys have the original files. I don't need to keep the original files. It's fine. Yeah, I'll be uploading these to a Google Drive folder, and then you can download them so you can look at them at your own leisure. I will also be uploading the JPEGs for the final version onto the Discord, so you can really quickly see, like, if you didn't watch the stream, you can really quickly see like what are the changes that I made, so you can go forth and make those changes yourself. And that will be it for this critique. I did go a little bit harder than usual because last month we did not do anything, and so the only things I'm looking forward to seeing is this month's challenge or last month's challenge. Any edits you will make to these pieces, and feel free to drop them into the chat, the Patreon chat, or in the general chat if you feel comfortable. But I'm gonna go eat something and take a rest. I will see you guys next time. Bye bye.